Welcome, everyone, to another episode of PTR Perspective. In today's episode, we're going to be focused on Europe, and we're going to be talking about the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Facility and the 424 million funding that has been granted to 42 different projects within the EV charging infrastructure and hydrogen refueling station space, and beyond that as well. We're going to be talking about the different countries this grant would be allocated to. With me today in this episode is one of our leading analysts on e-mobility space, Ijlal Khan, who would be answering some of my questions on this topic. Ijlal, jumping right into it, can you start with elaborating a little bit more about the AFIF, Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Facility, the funding they provide, and also for the uninitiated ones among us, the difference between AFIF and AFIR?
Okay, hi Hassan. First of all, thanks for the introduction. And yeah, coming over to the query. So yeah, these projects are funded through various calls, like recently declared of investment of about 424 million euros allocated under the Connecting Europe Facilities, Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Facility, which is AFIF. So this works by directing and allocating resources for more than 4,200 charging points, 48 hydrogen stations, electrifying ground service operations for 21 airports under this recent call. So this funding would be coupled with financing from major financial institutions to achieve our higher impact of these EU grants. So from the history since 2021, EU has already granted over 1.3 billion euros through the same facility to several projects, deploying around 26,396 electric charging points, 202 hydrogen refueling stations, and yeah, for 63 airports. So coming over to the background of this funding, there is this next generation EU recovery plan, which has declared investment of 1.8 trillion euros. One third of this, which is 5.84 billion, it was declared for the EU's 7-year budget, which is from 2021 till 2027. So now, since its start, 1.3 billion has already been utilized. Apart from this recently declared 424 million euros for this recent call. So also to share, there is this 1 billion euros that is specified for the period of 2024 till 2025 out of this parent investment. So coming over to the difference between AFIF and AFIR. So just to give it a background, by 2025, EU is aiming for 1 million charging stations targeted significantly by AFIR, which is Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Regulation. So this comes under the objectives and goals set in the European Green Deal. So the second phase of this facility, AFIF, which is for 2024 and 2025, it claims to support the objectives set in the new regulation, which is AFIR, for the deployment of this infrastructure regarding publicly accessible electric recharging stations and hydrogen refueling stations across the European Union's main transport corridors and hubs. So this includes the objectives set in Refuel EU Aviation and Fuel EU Maritime regulations. So that's
Interesting point you
basically.
raised over there about the cross EU transport corridors.
Mhm.
Everyone talks a lot about 10T. So, what's the impact of AFIF, this new funding on the 10T network? Like, how do they correlate, or do they even correlate with each other?
Okay, so these projects are definitely prioritizing this network, which is Europe's cross geographical transport arteries. So AFIR regulates under the EU Green Deal, mandates the installations of fast chargers every 60 kilometers along the highways, ranging towards the 10T network, with higher capacities of at least like 400 kilowatts by 2025, 600 kilowatts by 2027, and as much as of 800 kilowatts by 2028. So the charges for trucks and buses will also be included with the capacities of 1400 kilowatts, my bad, and 2800 kilowatt, will also be built by end of 2025 and 2027 respectively. So this goal translated through the funding from this facility AFIF directly addresses the concerns regarding fulfillment of the goal or objective set by this regulation. So if we are considered about the benefits, Yeah, then by focusing on these high traffic areas, AFIF ensures this essential charging is located or built where it's most needed for long distance travel and freight movement. Importantly, non-availability of high power charging infrastructure would definitely hinder the movement of heavy duty vehicles. Therefore, strategic deployment of this rapid charging infrastructure will definitely alleviate or curtail the range anxiety for these heavy duty vehicles too.
So you talked about the high power charging infrastructure, basically 10T corridor across Europe that, this grant would be focused on. Can you tell me a little bit more about the geographies, maybe where these projects are actually going to be implemented, and also a little bit more about the types of chargers, a bit more flavor, maybe more quantitative on what kind of chargers would these projects be implementing?
Okay, so primarily the geographies involved are Central and Eastern Europe and Western Europe. As you would know that there is long way to go for infrastructure regarding Central and Eastern Europe, and comparatively decent infrastructure lies in the Western Europe. But focus lies on this geography too. The projects have fairly inclination. The list of the projects in the recent call, it has fairly inclined towards Central and Eastern Europe due to the fact that these geographies need to be electrified in order to attain fair deployment across all the states. So as far as this capacities are concerned, the focus of this funding is on deploying high power charging network ranging from minimum power output of 150 kilowatts specifically for light duty vehicles to 350 kilowatts for heavy duty vehicles with almost equal deployment intended. So these projects also include opportunity based fast chargers that have been included, but still there are no specific details specified.
So you talked about opportunity charging, high power chargers. There is one type of high power chargers, megawatt chargers, that keeps on coming up in the discussions about future. Do you see megawatt charging getting any of this funding or making any space in this investment ahead? What could be the considerations there?
Okay, so obviously megawatt chargers are the hype of the time. So they are still under development phase as if implementation and deployment is concerned, and the technology is not yet mature to be considered viable at the scale. While some pilot projects exist, like some charger OEMs have also come forward with this technology, just like recently Siemens has unveiled its megawatt chargers by delivering 1 megawatt charge in its testing phase for the first time. But the current electricity grid in most regions may not be able to handle the high power demands of this deployment. So not all EVs are all like currently designed to handle the high charging rates of megawatt charging technology. Even certain heavy duty vehicles need to be modified to adapt this latest charging technology standard and protocol. So, also for a specific mention that the next call for this funding includes the requirements from the bidder that their project would inculcate the sufficient uh, requirements for megawatt charging infrastructure. So this is also a ray of hope that could be considered to direct this funding towards this latest technology. Yeah, and you also asked about the pull, like what could be the pull for this investment?
Yeah, like overall, what are the considerations when you think about the megawatt charging? What's kind of, the pull from the market today, even on
Hmm.
megawatt charging?
Okay. Yeah, a positive pull could be like the proposed 2035 ban on new combustion vehicles, which is proficiently it is projected to significantly accelerate EV adoption. And after these strategic steps and upon resolution of the constraints related to this megawatt charging technology, we can expect funding from EU and grants from the local governments as well, and we can hope them to jump in and play a more prominent role in deployment of this technology. Yeah.
So, talking about specific EU countries, for example, so just to summarize this episode, are there any other funding programs or any other kind of incentives or plans by EU or other countries within Europe, which you think are like kind of complementing this AFIF funding, which are there for the companies to target?
Okay, yeah, there are primarily 4 to 5 countries, namely Norway, France, Germany, Netherlands, that obviously comes ahead of the game, as Norway is the first country expected to reach 100% electrification for passenger EVs, with increased focus on deployment of high power chargers greater than 150 kilowatt. France is aiming towards to have more than 400,000 electric charging points on its road network by 2030, including 50,000 fast charging points, making it the second best equipped country in Europe, behind Netherlands and ahead of Germany. And as far as Germany is concerned, Germany has recently announced 6.3 billion euros over the next 3 years and aiming to achieve 1 million charging points, making it the second best equipped country. Not second, but yeah, third best. Then also they are expecting 8,500 fast chargers to be installed in current country through this through European Union's funding. And Netherlands obviously has the densest public charging network, and they are aiming to have 1.8 million charging stations by 2030. So overall, these regional plans are playing their roles while making its presence toward the higher end goal set by AFIR regulation, or under which comes under the European Green Deal, or the goal set by
So
European Union.
Norway, Netherlands, Germany, and France is basically where you see some other incentives as well. Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Ijlal, with the audience. One small note for everyone watching the episode, we will also link down the list of 42 projects in the description of the video. Feel free to access that if you're interested in it. And again, we do a lot of research on the topic of EV charging infrastructure, e-mobility, and the whole ecosystem around it. So if you have any questions on that topic, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much, and ciao for now.
Thank you, Hassan.